And then when they get there, they're like, oh, yeah, it's going to be like a 4-hour labor. No, it wasn't. It was 17 hours, literally. Like, what in the world?
Hey, I'm Dylan.
And I'm Gabby. We both had our own story before our lives completely transformed.
Eventually, we started traveling and doing ministry.
We connected and got married.
Then we started a family.
Then came the shift, a call to live more simple and rooted.
Welcome to Caughversations.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Caughversations. So this is part 2 of our North Carolina journey. And specifically, we wanted to do a video highlighting the pregnancy and the birth story. And so for those of you that did not watch the last episode, we went into a short little bit of the pregnancy story, but I'm just going to quickly recap what we went over. So we go from New York to North Carolina, and right after arriving in North Carolina, just a few days in, we figure out that I'm pregnant. Surprised, but not surprised. You know, we knew it was going to happen, but it was still shocking as we're young.
Speaking of that, she said surprised but not surprised. It's funny because we just went to a fellowship yesterday, and this one girl was talking about pregnancy, and she was like, something like, a lot of girls will say, oh, I'm surprised that I'm pregnant, and then she made the comment.
Or how did it happen?
How did it happen? It's like, obviously, you know how it happened. And so, really, looking back, it's just funny now because we shouldn't have been very surprised.
I know. But it's just so shocking. I mean, we were newlyweds.
Yeah.
And for me, it was very shocking. But, anywho, so it was shocking. It was hard. You know, the first couple days of figuring out, I think were really tough for us. We both struggled with, like, man, this is really happening.
It was heavy because we have no place to stay. We got our little, what was the car at the time?
A little Ford Fiesta.
Yeah.
Tiny car.
And that was...
Dylan wasn't working.
That was like the most we had, honestly. That was like our little humble abode where we shoved all our stuff in it.
Literally.
But we were staying in an RV at the time. And so those were the thoughts going through my head, at least, was, oh my goodness, I have no job, no place to stay, and I don't know how I'm going to lead my family in this new season because I've never been rooted before.
Yeah, and we're both young and just got married. And so there's all these things circulating, but we knew it was going to happen. You know, The Lord had prepared us. He had showed us through so many different people the specific time frame, but it was still really scary when it happened. And so after those 3 days, though, I think it started to get progressively better. You know, Dylan was very fearful, as he can dive into throughout the pregnancy, but he also was pretty joyous and excited to have a child, where for me, I wasn't fearful of the pregnancy and birth, but I wasn't excited to have a child, which sounds really bad, but that is my honest answer of what happened. And it's a testimony because I obviously don't feel that way anymore. But just going throughout this pregnancy, you know, the first couple months are honestly a blur for me. I don't remember much because we found out really late. I was I think 9 weeks pregnant or 11 weeks pregnant, something like that. I want to say I think I was 9 weeks pregnant when I found out. And so, you know, almost out of my first trimester already. And so basically fast forward, eventually, if you want to tell this story, the Lord opened a place for us. Praise God.
Yes. So in the last episode, we were talking about how the leader, when we first arrived in the community, connected us with a house fellowship. And so this was a vital moment on our North Carolina journey because...
Big word.
Yeah, big word. But it was a huge moment because the family that we connected with when we attended this house fellowship is the very family that we lived with for over a year, or maybe a little over a year.
I think it was exactly 1 year. Which is
crazy.
Yeah,
it was.
Sorry.
No, you can go now.
Yeah, so they opened the door. The way it happened was just totally the Lord, and it was such an answered prayer because we had to leave the RV.
I know what I remembered what happened now. I was freaking out a lot of the times in the RV, like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And I think it was you or somebody else was giving me a word, like, you just gotta humble yourself and like tell your fellowship what's going on.
Yeah.
And it was at that fellowship.
To be transparent and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was that one. I'm like, at the very last moments of the night, I'm like, hey guys, like, and I remember shaking him because it is a humbling moment when you say, I'm new here. We don't have much. We don't have a place. We got to be out of this RV. And to be honest with you guys, I don't know where we're going to go. We have to go somewhere. And then I remember the two people of that house looked at us.
Yeah, and then we were all in unity because I was praying that for them to invite us. I think you were too, and then they had the same thought that same day.
So I was gonna ask, did you know that I was gonna like? Did
I know you were gonna do that?
Yeah, that night.
Nope.
It shocked you?
Yep. Just because Dylan was never. I mean, Dylan definitely had his transparent moments with people he was super close with, but not in group settings. That's not like Dylan. And so it was a huge answered prayer because I knew I was gonna have a home birth, and I kind of skipped that. Oopsies. But from get-go, day one, I'm having a home birth, but I have no home. So how does that work? And so we knew, okay, now we're going to be living with people. We rented a bedroom from them. So we're like, okay. And we talked to them about having a home birth, and they were good with it. And so I'm like, okay, now I can be rested that this home birth is happening. Because to be honest, the last thing I wanted, like I'm being legit when I say I'd rather go outside. Having a hospital birth for me, I said birth really funny, it was just like, oh, I can't. My peace is not there. I can't do that. So, anywho, big answered prayer.
I was fearful both ways because home birth was a whole new thing, but in general, I never liked hospitals either. So that was kind of already something we were in unity about. I didn't really lean to a particular side. I was just fearful no matter what. Because again, that lack of control. There's like. With
Especially
birth,
for you.
Yeah.
Like you have zero control in birth. I mean, I don't either though, honestly. I can't do anything.
I mean, as the wife, it's really your decision, especially as, first time mother. Like, you're the one that's pregnant, so I got to support her and what she wants. And I don't think a home birth is against the Lord's will. I mean, you could tell that was really, if you would have looked at Gabby, you knew that was a desire that was on her heart. But even during this time, as we were in this house and renting this room, that was even something that was really growing us and building our character because we had to prepare this room for this baby that was coming. And it was a pretty small room.
Yeah, we definitely lived by humble means for the entirety of our marriage, which is good. I mean, when you think about it, a little side note from the birth story, it's like from the get-go of like our marriage, we had very little, which is good. I mean, it taught us how to live humbly, literally. I mean, obviously we were out on the streets, so we can't complain. But we never had a place up until recently. And even when we had Lydia, most of Lydia's life has been her traveling with us and living in our bedroom in tiny rooms or RVs.
So where do we start now? Like one of the big things I feel like was the gender. Is that where we start?
Yeah. I think that was a pivotal moment for especially you.
Because in the beginning, as Gabby was talking, she was saying I had this excitement and this joy. But what I would really say brought the joy was the expectation of what gender the baby was going to be. Because one thing that I really desired was having a daughter. And if you're watching this, you know that came to be true. God gave us a daughter. And so that was what brought me the excitement.
Yeah, and the crazy part, too, is the Lord gave us this name when I was still single, before I knew Dylan. And he gave me the name Lydia from the book of Acts one day when I was reading, and I just knew. And again, I was never into kids and all that, but I had asked the Lord to give me a name one day after talking to some other sisters that had, like, all these names on a journal. And somebody spoke this name, and I eventually told Dylan, I don't even know if I told you before we were even pregnant, but he was like in total agreement.
Yeah,
so
it was
then
before.
So we're like, we know it's going to be a girl before we even took the test. So that was really cool though for the confirmation.
Lydia was like a biblical name in the book of Acts, like she said, but I actually remember even not thinking of the Bible, like Lydia resonated with me. I always liked the name Lydia.
That's so cool.
I remember telling you that though. And so it wasn't even that, it was just someone from the book of Acts. I just really liked the name Lydia, and so it was like an instant yes for me. There was something special about that name.
So cool. So yeah, we went to like a blood place where they just take your, I forget what they're called, but you can go to like a laboratory and they take some blood out of your arm and then they could test to see whether it's a female or male. And so we did that and got our results back in a couple days. And we were actually on our way to Florida, remember, for a short little trip. And that's when we opened our email in the car, and it was a girl. And Dylan was so excited. You remember
And
that?
when we were on that trip in Florida, had we already announced it or no? Because I remember on
Not
that
publicly.
yeah,
No.
it was on that trip though. We were slowly hinting it through videos, like you were joking about me being a dad.
And I had said I can't lift heavy things, which is
Yeah.
honestly a myth in pregnancy, but we can talk about that another day.
Yeah. So after the trip, we come back, and
We announced I was pregnant online.
yes, and it
The
was
first time.
and it was a fail because we had the confetti cannons that were pink, and instead of shooting them up,
We shot them down.
yeah, we
didn't
shot them at ourselves. You can watch that video.
Yes.
But it made it special either way, so that was fun.
Yeah, and so I think from here is where a little bit of the spiritual shift starts to happen. So very early on in our pregnancy, especially once people started to know, because we didn't tell the community at first, because I felt really like, it sounds weird maybe, but to me I felt really awkward showing up at a community and saying, oh hey guys, my name's Gabby and I'm pregnant, especially without a bump. It just felt weird, and so I didn't do that. We waited a little bit until we started to gain, at least a little bit of friendship with everybody. But anywho, as this pregnancy continued and we're talking to people in the community, we're talking to friends, there's, we have like a social media presence. Not that we have tons of followers, but I don't know what word to use.
Yeah.
We were active on social media. So that's when opinions started coming in, whether it was good opinions, bad opinions, from the heart, from fear, from XYZ. And because I knew the Lord, had shown me I was going to have a home birth, and it aligned with just the desire in my heart. Like, the Lord was very specific with me and how he spoke to me about being really careful with what I shared and what I said and what I allowed to take in, because I believe this wholeheartedly, that there's something very spiritual about birth. I mean, so much so that I don't even think I really fully understand it yet. But all throughout pregnancy, you'll know this. As soon as you tell someone you're pregnant, what's the first thing that comes out of their mouth? Their horror story. It's like instant speaking death or instant fear. And I'm not even saying they're trying to. It's just like it happened all the time. Every single time I told somebody.
And if it's not the horror story, it's, so how are you going to do it? Are you going to go to the hospital? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? Are you going to get this checked? Like, those procedures that, what are they called? I forget what they're called.
Which ones?
Just the one where they go.
Well, they don't do that super early on, but
it's still stuff like that. Like, are you getting this
your
checked?
checkups and all that. And I'm not telling anybody to do things the way I did. Like, you hear the Holy Spirit for yourself, because I know what I did. There's not a lot of people that really follow that, but it's starting to become more popular, free birth and things. But yeah, I just, at this point in my life, like the Lord, and I'm not saying the Lord's always going to lead me to do it the way I did it, but at this point, I did not want to let in an ounce of fear. And, I spoke to a lot of friends that had checkups throughout their pregnancy, and honestly, most of the checkups are things you can Google online. How are you feeling today? What are your symptoms? And then ultrasounds. Like, that's most of it. I mean, sure, there's sometimes blood testing and things, but, I knew I was a healthy individual, and I was trusting the Lord, and especially for Dylan's sake, I did not want to hear any bad reports, because I knew that would really freak him out. And I knew the Lord said this is going to be a smooth home birth.
But
and so why would I fear?
Oftentimes it did happen in front of me.
Yes. But I'm meaning more so like medical checkups. Like, they're so basic. But if any little thing would have been like, oh, red flag, you would have been like, oh yeah. But I know it sounds crazy. I'm just telling you.
I wavered a lot.
Yeah. We were staying in a place of peace. And honestly, biblically speaking, most of the things we do today for birth are not what the original plan was. But anywho.
That's a whole nother story.
Yeah, I shouldn't get into that. That's too much. But anywho, this is just what I'm trying to say is, like, we had to hear Holy Spirit. We had to obey Holy Spirit. And a lot of people were speaking things, and I don't believe everyone had a bad heart to do so, but I think we need to be careful with what we're saying to pregnant people, because it could really shake someone, and a little seed of fear can transpire into something huge. And I'll talk about that later, because throughout my whole pregnancy, there was only one thought that came to me that someone spoke, and then that thought actually stayed with me as a seed, and that almost made things terrifying at the end, but the Lord was there. So, is there anything you want to share at this point?
I was just going to say, last thing about all this is somebody can have good intentions and like genuinely care about you. So even with like the checkups and how you're going to do this and that, in their heart, they can sincerely care. They love you, but it doesn't change what God says. If God told you to do something, you stand on it. And so that's really what Gabby was standing on, was this home birth that was on her heart. And even if I wasn't feeling it like she was feeling it, that means honestly, and maybe some of you are going to think I'm crazy, but like in a way, yeah, go against me, because I mean, looking back, yeah, I was operating in fear. So she doesn't have to submit to that. She's not like, you people take that out of context, like submit to your husband, like submit to him if he's fearful, like you have to follow him. And I don't think it works that way. Looking back now, it's like, if I was walking in fear, that's not Christ. And so therefore, like, don't submit to that. And I'm glad she didn't, because I mean, based on a lot of other stories, it's true. It's like the very people who are worried about us and how her birth was going to go are the ones who had these traumatic experiences. And then Gabby, you know, calm and collected and, you know, standing on what God told her, she ended up having a smooth home birth. And that's just how it happened.
The good thing, though, too, with Dylan is, like, though Dylan was petrified, he didn't force me to do something I wasn't comfortable with.
I know. I just
you were
it.
like, you do what you want to do, is what he said to me. And so he had to stand on my faith, which was, like, weird, because, like he's saying, you know, obviously the guy's supposed to lead. And I was like, Lord, I don't want to do what's, like, I don't want to go out of order on this, but I know what you're speaking. And so I was thankful that Dylan still, like, allowed me to, like, do what I felt like the Lord was saying.
I wasn't leading her to do anything else. I wasn't like, you have to go to a hospital. It wasn't like that. I just wasn't comfortable. I had to fight everything in my flesh to
the whole time
to go along with it. And so,
but I'm thankful for that, because I know the faith I had during that whole experience was not of me. Like, it was only through the Lord that I could stand, because there's, like I said, I'm a first-time mom. I was 21. Like, my husband isn't in faith. Like, none of it was like me standing in faith. It was really just the Lord's goodness. And I just hope it was a testimony and is a testimony for the future other people, because, I mean, we're in some crazy times. You know, free birth is going to become the new normal at some point. Let's just be real. Yeah. Anyway, so from this point on, trying to think of what's in order. There's, like, the birth story. There's so much to it. There's so much.
After the blood test and then Florida, we come back. Life's happening still. Yeah. Then there was the ultrasound that we waited to do.
Yes. So I will also clarify, you know, though I had a free birth and I didn't have all my, like, checkups, I had several women in my life that had been through this. They had been through home births. They had all the knowledge, so much research. They came from the medical field, but then pursued a holistic view. So it's like I had people in my life helping me, you know? I had women. So I don't want you guys to think I was doing it all on my own, because there's no way.
Although we do know people that literally did it in the garage by themselves. So there
but
are
she
people
was
like
knowledgeable.
that.
Like, she, you know, a holistic view. That's where I'm at. Holistic view of things. But so, yes, we waited till 20 weeks to get an ultrasound, because there are some risks with ultrasounds, and you don't really need one unless there's something wrong. It's how it used to be. But we wanted to go to this ultrasound, honestly, for me to make it feel more real, because I didn't get a bump for a long time. And so I'm like, Lord, like, I know there's a baby in me, but, like, I also don't really know. Like, it just feels so fake. Like, it sounds crazy, but I couldn't really connect. And so I really wanted to do an ultrasound for this reason. So we'd found an imaging place where it's not associated with, like, a hospital or anything. It's just a place that strictly does imaging. And so we go there, and the lady was super sweet, and she did images, and we saw Lydia for the first time, and it was, like, really cool. I think that's the first time I really started to get a little joyous about the whole thing, because I'm like, man, you know, we were seeing Lydia move, and her heartbeat, and, like, all that stuff. I mean, she was obviously really small at 20 weeks, so we couldn't really see much, but it was enough.
Yeah, it was exciting. We got to get her the little, was it a sheep?
Yeah, we had her sheep.
And it has, like, her heartbeat, so we still have that to this day, and it's just, there's so much excitement in that moment. And even the lady doing the ultrasound, she wasn't, like, hard on Gabby or anything, asking tough questions. She was just she brought comfort to us as well, and so that was nice to have.
Yeah, because I was a little worried about that. I'm like, oh man, a lot of imaging centers, like, they want you to have like a doctor and like everything set up, or a midwife. And I told them, like, I'm doing a home birth. I don't have a doctor or a midwife. And she's like, okay. You know, I'm sure internally she might have been thinking, oh, that's interesting, but she wasn't like vocal about that, and so that was nice. But yes, we had that ultrasound, and from there, after that, I think we began to decorate, you know, our little tiny bedroom.
The nesting stage.
Yes. You know, and throughout that time, once we made the announcement, we put up a baby registry online, and like, I remember having the thought before it happened, and I told Dylan, I said, Dylan, literally everything on this registry that we need is going to be bought. And that's literally what ended up happening by the time I gave birth. People were sending us so many things. It was such a blessing. And so, like, in our little tiny room, we, like, dedicated a wall for Lydia's stuff and, like, put up her bassinet and organized it. And just, it was so exciting. I mean, it was such a small space, but, like, it was so joyous to us. Like, it was really fun.
And it's crazy how much space there even was after all that stuff was set up. Like, it was small, but looking back, it was like, wow, there's actually...
It was cute.
You learned some real organization skills in that room.
Yeah, we learned how to live really small, like, for real. I don't know how we did it. It was the grace of the Lord.
Do you feel like you could ever go back to something like that in the future?
Only with the Lord's grace. I never want to, but I never know what's going to happen. You know, and end times.
Lord could send you to Africa, you know?
Me? You mean us? What do you mean?
I'm just messing with you.
I always said, like, when I was single, I could live out of a car. But once you have kids, it's like, it's so hard. I don't know how I did that. The Lord's grace only.
So the next part, and cut me off if I'm skipping, but we had to really start planning as time progressed. And I remember we were getting to the moment where we had to figure out where we were officially having the baby. Because, yeah, we had the small room, but then there was also this basement in the house. And so that was something we were navigating because there was somebody down there at the time.
Oh, yeah. They were also renting.
Yeah.
So we were renting a bedroom on the floor with, like, you know, the family. And then there was a single man, like, older man, renting the basement.
And so that's where we ended up having the home birth.
Yep.
But I want to highlight the meeting was so funny to me because we had to have this meeting with the family in the house because they wanted us to have a plan.
A birth plan.
And so we got the people that Gabby had gotten together. There was 3 women specifically, and we had this meeting in the basement.
But only the main girl came.
Yeah.
Woman.
Yeah. There's the main woman. And I just remember it was so funny because we were downstairs and we were all getting ready to talk, and the husband of the house looks at us and he says, "So what's your guys' plan?" And I remember me and Gabby
We're like,
we were so silent because I was like, we don't have one. But let me explain. And when all this happened, we made a video called God's Birth Plan, and that's what I want to highlight. It was called God's Birth Plan because quite literally, the thing about planning a birth is you can't plan one. You can only plan so much, and most of the time it doesn't go according to plan. We just knew...
Even the plan we ended up making was still different.
Yeah, it didn't happen the way we planned it.
Yeah, it's funny because that was actually towards the very end of our pregnancy. Because I was meeting with the woman, like the main girl. Again, I'm like weird with names on this, so I don't throw names out there a lot. But I know you know who you are. You know, I was meeting with her. She poured into me so much throughout the pregnancy. I'm so thankful. Just answered every question I had. Was there anytime I needed her? I went to her house a lot when I was pregnant, and she was just able to give me so much advice and wisdom throughout the whole birth. And so she was just like my like advocate, I guess, for the time being. And so I remember we were meeting. I just thought she was going to talk the whole time because, you know, I'm doing my best to learn about pregnancy, about the positions that help when you're in labor, about the breathing and all this stuff. But, you know, like I was a little intimidated by this talk downstairs. So I was like hoping she was going to take over the conversation. Because honestly, I felt a little bit like, who am I to talk? I'm like so young right now. And so it was that conversation was definitely awkward. But then after that, it encouraged me of like, no, I'm capable of like standing my ground.
Just to clarify though, the family had every right to be nervous.
Yeah, I mean, it was at their house. If something
Yeah.
goes wrong. And when I say stand my ground, I mean in terms of like, I knew the Lord had me in terms of the home birth and that I was going to be safe, but I didn't feel like I was the best at reciting the knowledge I had learned. Because even if you're not a Christian, there's so many unbelievers that have amazing births because they have the knowledge, if that makes sense. Does that
does make sense. Like we've talked about this off camera. There's a lot of like people in the occult or like New Age that have
or
these
Eastern religion.
They have these beliefs that are twisted, but there's a lot of truth in those beliefs. So a lot of them, when it comes to medical stuff, they have a lot of knowledge when it comes to like the plants and the foods we eat and stuff like that, and what we should put in our body.
And so what I felt was that I was in a good place spiritually, but not like in my knowledge of home birth. Even though I had taken so much time, I was just like wrestling a little. But I still was at peace. And so from there on, I'm like, I'm going to learn even more. And I'm going to like write down all this stuff. And I remember she gave me packets of information that I was just studying from holistic midwives and just like taking so much in. But honestly, like the key points of birth literally is to be at peace. Anytime there's an ounce of stress or fear, that's when things go wrong. If you don't allow that, nothing's going to go wrong. And I know that sounds crazy. I just believe that. Without an ounce of fear and without an ounce of stress. So here's the part that I will share. This was the part where fear crept in for a moment. So one of the friends that was involved with the home birth, I remember her telling me something. And it's not on her at all for telling me this. This was a me thing. But I remember her telling me, she's like, oh yeah, you're having a home birth. That's amazing. I had the home birth in the garage. That's the girl we're talking about. And I remember her saying, the only way you can't birth a child is if they're transverse, which is sideways. Because she actually birthed her kid feet first. That is a thing that's possible when you're on your hands and knees. But a lot of midwives aren't trained in that anymore. And so they don't like it. And they want to do C-sections over it. But she's not for that. She's like, you can still birth it. I did it. She's like, but you can't birth a transverse baby. They can't fit through. And I remember her saying that. And I didn't even realize, but it planted a seed of fear in me. Because I kept thinking about that. I'm like, oh man, this would be the only way I can't vaginally birth a child naturally. And I thought it like was whatever. But then I realized, at my 20-week, ultrasound going back, the baby was transverse. And she's like, that's normal for this age. Like a lot of them are transverse. But it's like, as I was towards the end, after we had this talk and whatever, I'm like, oh my goodness, like this baby feels sideways in my belly. Like when I would feel around and even have other women look, they're like, yeah, I mean, they look kind of sideways. And so this really like started to mess with me. Like this was the one thing that like kind of got a grasp over me. And I kept doing like practical things. There's certain positions you can get in and bouncing on the yoga ball, and that helps get the baby in place. And I was doing all these things for like a week, and finally I literally broke. I was so scared to tell Dylan my fear. Do you remember? I was so scared to open up about it because I'm like, man, I've been having to stand in faith this whole time. If I tell him I'm worried, he's gonna like, I don't even know how he's gonna react. So I was nervous because I felt like the pressure was on me, which obviously isn't a good thing to think. We're supposed to give everything to the Lord, but I was just like, I know I need to tell him. So I ended up telling him.
Yeah, and from that moment, I honestly...
But you handled it extremely well.
I know. I remember we were in the room, and I was just so calm.
It was the Lord. Like, you literally just started praying over me without any ounce of fear. I was like, praise God. Like, the first time he didn't have fear was when I opened up about something.
Yeah. But then after that, I don't know if it was the next day or a few days later, my mom actually reached out to you, right? Mm-hmm. And she ended up blessing us with money because she felt like the Lord put on her heart, just go get another ultrasound. But I want you to know that I already believe that the baby is going to turn into the right position. Yeah,
she's like, the Lord is going to meet you. And like, I forgot how she said it, but basically this would be my proof. Because I'm like, I needed to know, that this baby was not sideways. And so I'm like, okay. And I felt better about it. And I kid you not, when we were going to the ultrasound within like the next couple of days, the day of the ultrasound, I woke up and I knew the baby was in a different position. Because we had gone like to a few places before our appointment, and I had to pee like every 30 minutes. And that wasn't a thing before. Do you remember that? I had to keep using the bathroom And I used to a lot beforehand, but never that much. And there was just like a pressure in my like, pelvic region. And I knew, I'm like, oh my goodness. Like I literally felt the baby move overnight. I woke up and the baby was in the proper position. So we go to the ultrasound again. I don't love ultrasounds, but I'm like, the Lord's going to cover me through this. Like he's going to be over it. And so I go to the ultrasound, and sure enough, literally the first thing the lady says before anything else was, oh, look, your baby's in the right position. Beautiful. That's literally what she said. So I was just in such like a bliss state. I was like, thank you, Jesus. Like now I'm all set. So let's do this thing.
Amen.
Yeah, so.
Do we jump back into the basement? As like, I feel like throughout this, we've just been highlighting a lot of the big moments. I mean, there were a lot of in-betweens, but now we're kind of getting to the point where
the nitty-gritty.
The birth is coming.
Happening.
And so I remember there was a very specific day. There was this realization that we had to actually prepare now. Like, we had to get the basement situated. And so we were running around that day, and we went to, like, Dollar General to get some stuff for the flooring because we didn't want, goo and stuff everywhere. And then,
guys, by the way, it is nowhere near as messy as people make it out to be. At least mine wasn't. There was like not much mess at
it's
all.
different for everyone, I guess, but it wasn't that bad.
How many births have you been a part of?
Well, because,
I'm just kidding.
for example, sometimes there's a lot of blood, right? And then there's the one where it's like the baby's covered in white.
Vernix?
Yeah, stuff like that.
They say to leave that on, though, guys. Don't take it
Anyways, we went to all these places. We went to, what's the food place?
I don't know what you're talking about.
The place we got the ice. It's a place that's known
Sonic.
Sonic. They have
the good ice.
The special ice. And
yep.
Then we went to Home Depot and we got a special piping piece for the birth pool because that was one of the things that we had in the basement. And the reason why I'm saying all this is because I believe this was October 1st, right?
It was the day before I went into labor.
Yeah, but you went into labor that night. That's why I'm saying all this because we prepared like in perfect timing. Like if we didn't prepare that day, she would have went into labor later that night and nothing would have been set up.
Yeah, it's so funny though, cause like, as I started to go into birth, like we said, we had this idea of what our birth plan was to be, and then it totally wasn't, for the most part. Should I start going into the birth story now? Like, quickly?
Yeah.
I'm not going to take too long, because we have a whole video dedicated on that.
Yeah, we can highlight that video if you guys want to see it. Comment down below, or I'll just throw it in this video somewhere.
Yes. So I'll just do, like, a quick recap. So, I was kind of like, I actually remember from the very get-go of starting to feel like pressure down in that area. I was like, oh, this can't be labor. Like, I was just kind of in denial for hours and hours.
Wasn't it late too?
Yeah, I started at 7 p.m. actually. It was when we were like making dinner. Like, we were eating really late in that season. But I remember I didn't think it was labor because it was like this consistent pain for hours. Like, it just didn't go away. It was just like the sharp pain that I felt for like hours. Or maybe there was breaks here and there. But from like 7 to 10, it was just kind of like consistent. And then eventually we go in our room to go to bed. And that's when it was just, I couldn't sleep. And I told Dylan, I'm like, Dylan, is this it?
I feel like I could see it on your face too. You just looked like it was already excruciating for you.
Yeah, and I think it really surprised me because I had expected the baby to come like a week later. And she came right on her due date, which is, that never happens. It's like, I think only 9% of the time that actually happens. I was expecting to go late for some reason. I think I prayed and like asked the Lord for a day, but I just kind of went with one. Or it was the one you said. Dylan said a day. And so I was just kind of believing for that day. But this was a week before that day. So I was like, no way. I thought it was Braxton Hicks or pre-labor or something. And so when it started to hit, I was like, oh my goodness, like, this is painful. I'm going to believe for pain-free next birth. But this first one was painful. And just from the very get-go, when I tell you, it was just crazy. Right from the beginning, my contractions were only 3 minutes apart. Besides at 7 p.m., like I said, from 7 to 10, it was just like consistent pain without any break. Just like consistent pressure. And then all of a sudden, I had actual contractions super close together.
Do you feel like from that 7 to 10 mark, if looking back, should we have said something sooner, or like?
I mean, no, because there's nothing. I didn't need anything at that point. I mean, even for people that go to the hospital, they don't go until they're like at the end.
I meant not from like a place of fear, but like you think we were just kind of hard headed, just or oblivious.
Even if I were to repeat it, I still usually when people let their midwife know, it's not towards further along, because that would have been like either pre-labor of the very beginning, because it wasn't quite contractions. It was like, I don't know how to explain it, because it was like this consistent pressure, and then all of a sudden I started getting contractors
But
later in the night.
I think it was around 10:30, 11.
I think it was like 11:30 once we finally like told
Yeah, we went to
the people we were living with.
Yeah, and I knocked on their door. It took like 3 tries. They come out, and I mean they've had so many births, so they knew what was happening, and so basically they come on in the room and they're like, "Yeah, this is it's time, like it's happening." Mm-hmm. And so Gabby goes in the living room. She's enjoying the nice garbage can bucket thrown up.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. No, it was grilled cheese and tomato soup. That was something I did not. Out of all the birth stories I had read and all the information I read, I didn't read about many pukes. And so that happened to me immediately. Is I had ate the worst meal ever. I had grilled cheese and like pre-made. This is when I wasn't eating. I mean, I was eating better, but it still wasn't the best yet. So we had like pre-made tomato soup in a carton.
Your throat had to be burning.
It was terrible. I was like, I hate throwing up so much, but it's good though because it was getting it out of my system. Mm-hmm. Like I don't like the feeling of throwing up, but it's good for you to get that out. And so I'm glad it happened at the beginning and not the end, because that it does usually happen at the end for people. But anywho.
And so from there, I'm on my phone, which most people are like, why are you on your phone? But I was just trying to urgently rush and get everybody that needed to be there. And so we got the main lady that was helping Gabby.
Yeah, because that was the thing. Again, normally you don't get people there right away. But my contractions from the get-go were so close together. 3 minutes apart. So Dylan did call them soon after we realized, because we're like, man, this is going to be a quick labor. We thought, and then when they get there, they're like, oh yeah, it's going to be like a 4-hour labor. No, it wasn't. It was 17 hours, literally. Like, what in the world?
Yeah.
I think. It's hard to know.
This
is just what people tell me. But yeah, I mean, it's honestly a blur. I remember just the whole time, I think what kept me is like, it sounds pretty like intense, but I was just thinking like, man, this is preparing me for persecution right now. I have no break. My whole labor was so intense, and I had not many breaks, because after the first couple hours, it then was, that doesn't sound like proper English. It was then 1 minute apart for like 12 hours. Do you remember that? I don't think I'm exaggerating. If I were to read my birth story, I think that's what I wrote, is for 12 hours, they were 1 minute apart. That's not typical. I know there's probably going to be like professional midwives on here like, oh, X, Y, and Z of why that happened, but whatever. It's okay. I think I should have done more exercise throughout my pregnancy. I think that's one thing I should have done to have probably the most optimal position.
Yeah, you were good as far as like probably when it came to water, she was crazy. Like
I would chug water.
Yeah. So.
And I was eating better, but not perfect. But exercise, I was lacking on. So next time around, I'm going to be way better about moving my body. Because I'm like, I just don't think Lydia was probably in the best position. And that's why it took a little bit longer. But also, I got in the pool too fast, and that slowed down my labor, and that happened.
That was one of the things that I was doing, too. I had to rush downstairs because
you had to fill the pool.
The bathroom's on the other side, and that's why we got that hose piece that I was telling you about at Home Depot. I had to rush this hose from one bathroom on the other side all the way into this living room area in the basement, and like attach it and then like turn on the water, and it took a while to fill it, to be honest. And so
yeah, it did.
It was.
But then I get in it because again we think my contractions are like close enough, but then I was in there for a long time, and it helped, but it didn't. To me, it wasn't really anything special. I think next time I honestly like, and maybe I regret when I say this, But I'm believing for pain-free anyways. But I think it probably would have been better to be in more pain and have it end quicker than less pain and have it last longer. Because it prolonged. I was in the pool for so long, and it was just like, didn't really help me.
The setting was nice, though. I mean, right where the pool was, we had scriptures on the wall. There were candles. There's soaking worship music. And
yeah, everyone was praying.
So that goes with what Gabby was saying earlier about the whole fear thing. Like, we created an atmosphere that had no presence of fear.
Yeah.
And so it's like you have to, you can pray for the Holy Spirit to be in the atmosphere, but sometimes it helps when you create that atmosphere. And that even means sometimes, and I'm bold saying this, but if you're a woman out there, and Gabby, I'm saying this as a man, so I want her to clarify because some people probably think I have no right saying this. But it really does matter who's there. So, so that could be someone very close to you. And if they're fear-based, you probably don't want them there.
Even some family members. Like, don't feel shame. You need faithful people there. I tell you, I'm not going to let someone in the room with me if they're not faithful. And I know that sounds probably really but that's just my conscience. I do not want to no offense, Dylan wasn't probably the most faithful, but that's my husband. Besides Dylan, I was like...
But in the moment, I didn't have fear that whole birth story.
And that was my prayer. Like, Dylan did stay in faith the whole time I was in the actual birth. It was just like this transition. But like, as far as women helping me, I'm like, no, I need you to be faithful and like-minded with me in this. And just praying and speaking in tongues and singing to the Lord. Like, that's what I wanted. Because again, when fear, I had seen what that little seed of fear can do to you. And most times we can have fear and not even recognize it. All the time. And so, like, it was painful, but it wasn't fearful. And there's a difference. Because even throughout, like, me having to endure this pain, like, I knew the Lord was with me, and his presence was so thick in the room. And I know he was just in that room. Like, I remember it so strongly. It was just a matter of me enduring and knowing it was going to end at some point. And I even think of, like, spiritual trials we go through. Like, it hurts in the moment, but we know it's going to end. And that's what kept me going, is at 1 hour of this day, it will stop, And
there wasn't a moment where one person stopped, whether it was praying or reading a verse, singing. Like, nobody stopped.
They were all encouraged.
The whole 17 hours was just all of us still seeking the Lord through this, birth.
And it's funny because I never slept. This happened overnight, so I had zero sleep, and still, like, the Lord gave me that endurance. I'm so thankful for. And I didn't really have food in my belly either. I was just chomping on my ice. Because, again, I planned to eat during my labor, but it was just like an intense
Shout out
labor.
to Sonic.
Yeah, it was an intense labor, so I just wasn't in the mood to eat. But, yeah, it's just that. I think that's what really kept me going. Again, it's faith. I was hoping that it would be less painful than it was. But I knew even in the pain that God was with me. And I knew he would meet me. And I wasn't going to allow fear in, because I knew fear would prolong it or make it worse or create some type of, barrier, I guess. I can't think of the word.
There's a
issue.
Verse, like a trap or whatever. What's the one?
A snare
from
the enemy. But a verse that I clung on to, and I know it's talking about Israel, but the fact that the Lord used this verse means that in the literal, it's still meaningful. It says that the Lord is the one that opens and closes the womb. Like, he literally opens and closes the womb. So I'm like, Lord, I know you're also going to deliver this baby out of my womb. Like, it's literally your design. And so me just knowing and having confidence in the Lord's design for birth and how he wanted it to be and intended for it to be, that's what kept me going in the pain and enduring. And so anyways, fast forward. I feel like we could talk about the birth for a while. Yeah. But, we're getting towards the end. We're still enduring. We're still waiting. We're still praying and pressing and just breathing. And I just was just, like, focusing on the Lord the whole time. And then towards the end was, like, I think when I was finally starting to get, like, worn out. Like, I was getting tired, And it was I wanted to make sure my breathing was well the whole time. You know, breathing is the most important part besides being in peace and focusing on the Lord. It's like taking deep breaths. And it was getting hard to take deep breaths without them like being all over the place. You remember? Like, I feel like I was making like weird sounds. Like, I was trying to breathe, but it's like all these other noises are coming out. And I was like, oh no, is that like, am I doing that right? Or I don't know.
It got to the point when the contractions would stop, you would just see her flop, like her head.
Yeah, I was like, I want to go to bed. I'm so tired.
I felt so bad.
I didn't even know you noticed that. I was tired.
It was so long too. I remember one of the things that I want to highlight even for myself was there's a period where we're like, obviously Gabby's the main one that's exhausted, but there was a moment where everybody even looked at me and they felt bad, and I was like, wow, Lord, like they're even having compassion on me. And you guys all told me to go have a cup of coffee outside, walk down the driveway, come back. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. I don't feel like I'm the one that's supposed to do this. But it was humbling. Like, I humbled myself. I did it. I came back and...
So I didn't tell you this, but I remember the moment. I'm like, no, don't leave the...
You actually felt that way?
Yeah.
You never told me that.
I didn't want to. I wanted you to have a break. It's because at that point I was in the pool and you were like, I was squeezing your hands every time I had a contraction. So I'm like, oh, dang it. Now I can't squeeze Dylan's hands.
I didn't know that. I would have stayed.
It's good that you got your coffee.
Anyways, eventually somebody said you had to get out of that pool. They recommended.
Yeah, it was actually your mom that said that.
Yeah.
Oops. Blur that out.
No, it's all good. It's real. Anyways.
Yeah, so I was told, and praise God, she heard that from the Holy Spirit. See, she's not like an expertise in birth. I figured that's not why you said, or you didn't want me to believe the name. There was just a lot of conflict with their families too that we didn't highlight in this episode, and so like one of the hard decisions we made was having my mom come, because Gabby wanted my mom there because of spiritual reasons. Mm-hmm. And like, but we didn't want that to conflict with Gabby's family, and so that was something that was hard too. And so that's why we're careful with names and stuff on here, because people are sensitive, and like we just don't want to cause issues, or in future episodes we got to be careful with names too, out of a place of respect and not putting someone down. But it's crazy that she had that thought, because again, like, she's not she didn't have a home birth or have a lot of, I mean, I don't know how much her knowledge was on like holistic measures at that point in terms of birth, but like I believe she heard that from Holy Spirit. And so I get on the bed. Oh, that was the worst, getting off the bed and like going into this other position. But this position, fast forwarded things a lot. As soon as I like got on the bed, and I wasn't laying back, I was like kneeling on the bed, like on my hands and
on the
knees.
yoga ball.
Yeah, like leaning on it, because I didn't get on my back the whole time. That's just not a good position. And this sped things up. I think I was probably on the bed for like 2 hours. I think that's probably it. I was in the pool for most of the time. And yeah, like it was just like the most intense part of it, but I knew I was progressing based on how I was feeling. And then the contractions being even like less than a minute at some point. I think like 45 seconds instead. So I guess the end of the birth was I started to feel it get more intense and more closer. And I was like, Lord, I literally can't. You're going to have to help me. And obviously he was helping me the whole time, but it was to that extreme where I was like, Lord, I literally I don't want to fail this. Like, you need to help me. I remember I said that at the very end, and there was like such a holy moment. Do you remember them? Everyone started crying. Do you remember?
I wasn't looking at everybody else. I know I was crying.
Like, you were crying, and then your mom, and then the other girl, not the main girl. Again, I don't want to use names. Not the main, the other one was crying. And they were like all encouraging me. It was just like so crazy. I'm like, it had to have been the touch of the Lord or something. But even that's
spiritual, because I feel like that it's like, imagine one.
Like I feel like it was probably the Lord's mercy on me, honestly. Like him not wanting to see me in pain.
I just think of like other symbolism though, or like other examples, like when you're in a church, like today, and the presence of God hits, and it's like, you're not the only one feeling it. You look around and everybody's excited, and the crying out increases, and then in this birth, or even when the Lord returns, and how like I can just imagine every believer that's surrounded by one another, and the joy and the
Yeah,
beautiful.
because it's like I said, I was weak the whole time. You cannot give birth apart from the hand of the Lord. But it's like at this very end, I was like, Lord, I don't know how I'm going to stay awake through the rest of this. Like, I have no choice. I have to keep going, but I don't want to keep going. Like, this is just so much. But it's like you just have to keep going. There's no other choice. And I felt so weak. And I'm like, Lord, I don't even know. And so now that I think of it, I really do think it was like the Lord probably looking at me of like, oh, like he doesn't desire to see us suffer. And, looking back, I have so many friends and so many people I've seen even online and even unbelievers that have had pain-free births. And I'm like, Lord, I'm believing that for next time. I don't believe he likes to see us like crying and in torture for hours. Like, I just don't. Anyways, that's another topic. So anyways, after that happened, baby was coming real soon. I remember feeling the ring of fire, they call it. Do you know what that is?
It's the most intense part.
But do you know what actually it's when the heads come in.
Yeah.
The head comes out. And honestly, that felt relieving to me. Some people say it's the worst part for them, but for me it was a relief. And I remember I had, what's the word? The fetal ejection. I think that's what it's called. When the baby, like, you're not pushing, the baby starts to make its way out. And that's how it's designed, A lot of people tear in the hospitals or even at home when they're forced to push. But my body was literally pushing for me like a sneeze. And that's when Lydia started coming out. And it was funny, too, because it's like, it felt like, anyways, I don't know, I wasn't looking. But it felt like she was, like, coming out and then, like, back in. And then coming out and then back in for, like, a little, like, a really short period of time. It wasn't long. But it's like I would push when my body was pushing. It's like I was pushing alongside it. And it was such a relief. Like pooping. That sounds so gross. But literally, when you have to, like, poop.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good example.
And it's relieving to poop.
I mean,
that's
even
what
as men
it was
have
like.
that struggle sometimes.
When the poop's, like, already coming out.
And so
yeah, and then Lydia came.
Eventually, Lydia comes, and I'll just highlight the last bit. So after Lydia comes is when we had to deal with the placenta, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was something I did not educate myself on enough. That was on me.
And so we were told the placenta has to come out within 30 minutes. And if it doesn't...
Well, for hospitals, that's like their procedure.
Yeah. They say it's dangerous if it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so
true.
It wasn't happening, of course. And there was some tensions because people upstairs were more concerned, like, hey, we should call somebody by this time. And some of the people downstairs were more, still standing in faith. We were just going through this for 17 hours and God moved. So obviously, why would they start to walk in fear, And so...
And for, like, the people involved, in their defense, like, their placentas always came out fast.
Yeah,
and so,
true.
like, on my end, that's one thing I didn't really look into. I should have done more research on, like... Because most people, it would just kind of, like, plop out. Or I do remember them telling me, you're going to feel, like, afterbirth contractions, and that's probably when your placenta's going to come out. And for me, though, I remember feeling them, and I kind of, like, was going against them. In labor, you're not supposed to go against your contractions. You're supposed to breathe through them. Because it's like every contraction is closer to your delivery. But for me, when I was getting the afterbirth contractions, I was, like, in such, like, recovering from my actual birth that I was kind of like... Is that Lydia?
I don't know.
I was going against the contractions, and I think that's why it took a longer time. But to make a long story short, it took a long time for my placenta to come out. So we call another woman that had all of her births at home. Tons of knowledge. She couldn't actually be there because she had something going on. And she told us, like, a position to get in, and it instantly plopped out.
And so that is the episode. Because Lydia is currently up. We filmed these at night. And so now we gotta go check on her. So anyways,
Yeah.
If you want to see more of the birth story, we have a whole playlist. I'll put it down in the description. You can check that out. It's our whole birth story from the very first moment to the last moment. And then we do have other videos where we talk about it, I believe so. Or you can go to Gabby's Instagram. She has a pinned comment where she shares the whole story. And so you can read more.
And stay tuned for part 3 of our North Carolina journey.
Part 3 is the last
and juiciest.
Yeah, the last episode of the North Carolina season, and there's going to be a lot of things that are said.